We will now reconvene today's council meeting. We are rising from closed session without a report today. With regards to moving forward, our next item is the public meeting. So we need a resolution to council to open the public meeting in accordance with section 34 of the Planning Act RSO 1990. Can I move in a second? Or moved by Councilor Byrne, seconded by Councilor Edgerton. All in favor? That is approved. First report on today's agenda is 8.2, Report Building and Planning 2026-09. 488 Ava Crescent zoning bylaw amendment. Mr. Wilkinson.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to members of council and public, before you today is planning report number 2026-09. The report presents two recommendations. One, that council receive and consider all comments related to zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA-01-26, and that bylaw number 2026-21 be approved to rezone subject lands from the rural residential zone to the rural residential exception 31 zone. The owners of 488 Ava Crescent wish to construct a 93 square meter or 1,000 square foot detached accessory apartment located within the detached accessory structure, 9.1 meters or 30 feet from the rear property line and 3 meters or 10 feet from the north interior side lot line. The detached apartment will be serviced by connecting to the existing well and a second septic system previously connected to the detached structure on the property. The septic system was reviewed by township staff and found the system to be satisfactory. The well supply will be shared with the principal dwelling. A hydrogeologic study was completed by qualified hydrogeologists and concluded that any potential water quantity problems resulting from a mutual well interference is not expected to the neighbors or to the site. The site plan and the hydrogeologist report was provided as attachments to the report. In areas outside Pipe Municipal Services, the township zoning bylaw permits a maximum of one accessory apartment dwelling, provided that the maximum floor area used for the accessory apartment does not exceed 45% of the gross floor area of the building in which it is located. The accessory apartment must be located within the principal dwelling. The property is designated and zoned up to 3 accessory buildings. An amendment to the zoning bylaw is required to establish a site-specific zone that will permit an accessory apartment outside the residential structure. Notice of the amendment was circulated by first-class pre-played mail to all assessed persons within 120 meters or 400 feet of the lands, and to all required ministries, agencies, and township department directors. Notice of the public meeting was posted on the township website. A notice sign was posted on the front of the property. The notice complies with the requirements of the Planning Act. After the drafting of the report, 2 comments from the public have been received, the neighbor directly to the north and the neighbor on the opposite side of Ava Crescent. Both neighbors are in support of the proposed development and have no objections to the proposed rezoning. Township staff have no objections to the application. The Township Public Works Department noted that the property owners are required to update the municipal addressing to recognize the accessory apartment. And comments were received from Peterborough County Public Works, Planning Departments, Autonomy Conservation, Enbridge Gas, Nexcom, Bell Canada, the Kawartha Pine Tree District School Board, and Hiawatha First Nations, all of which who have no objection to the application. The proposed amendments are consistent with applicable policies and regulations. Thank you.
Great, Matt. Nice to see the sort of development going on. It's the entire point is to get a few more apartment dwellings in the municipality by right under the new Planning Act legislation. So it's nice to see a few, not the first one, but we've seen a few come to fruition. It's nice to see that everyone's in support, including local neighbors. Questions, members of council, before we go with members of the public. Deputy Mayor.
Through you, Chair, I don't have a problem with this application, but can you walk me through the site plan? Like, I'm kind of struggling to understand this.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Deputy Mayor. So the site plan is actually divided into your side view and a top view. So the top view is the top part of the page, and a side view is on the other side. So the bottom portion is showing the elevations that there's an. Oh, okay.
Questions? Councilor Brett.
Through the chair, I have no problems with this request either, but I am somewhat annoyed by we're still worried about where livestock is housed. This is a rural residential agricultural area. I still get upset that we have to worry about where livestock plays into this at all. If you move to the country, you move to the country for a reason. And I hope this moves forward. Thank you.
Yeah, Matt, do you want to speak to that? I think you're referring to the sort of the MDS and the agricultural components, under the Planning Act. You want to just provide some clarity to that, and then we can move on.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the public and counselors, the minimum separation, distance separation, the MDS is a provincial guideline that is set up so that specifically manure odors and residents are, you don't have an odor nuisance in relation to a manure setback. So there are, if you have a barn capable of housing livestock within 750 meters, we do a review to see what is in that barn, what's it capable of, what's manure storage, how many nutrient units. There's a big calculation that goes along with what is in there and what is capable. And then the idea being that we don't want to put more people in, I say we as in the province wants to put people in close proximity to barns, and vice versa. We don't put barns capable of housing livestock near residential units.
Well, they're gonna know soon enough. It is the season. Any other questions? If not, we'll open it to members of the public. Okay, anyone wishing to speak to the application, you can come forward. If not, we will go back to council for a motion. Going once, going twice, seeing no motions, then questions for consideration of the report. There are two recommendations. One, that council receive and consider all comments related to the zoning bylaw amendment application, and that the bylaw number 2026-21 be approved to rezone the subject lands from the rural residential zone to the rural residential exception 31 zone. I'm going to move in a seconder. Moved by Councilor Burns, seconded by Councilor Natchoff. All in favor? That is approved. All right. Next, I just got to cross out where we are here. I got a few things done. We're 8.6, I believe. Matt, if you'd like to speak to that one, building and planning 2026-10, 1212 Moore Drive zoning bylaw amendment.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council and public. The next report for your consideration is report number 2026-10. This report also makes two recommendations that council receive and consider all comments related to zoning bylaw amendment applications ZB1-24, and that bylaw number 2026-20 be approved to rezone subject lands from the rural industrial zone to the rural industrial exception 11 and the natural linkage zone. The agent, DM Wills, and Associates submitted applications for both zoning bylaw amendment and site plan approval on behalf of the owner of 1212 Moore Drive. The subject lands are currently being used by the landowner, Topcan Self-Storage, as a self-storage and outdoor storage business. The applications were supported by a planning justification report, environmental report, stormwater management report, and site plans. Self-storage and shipping containers and outdoor storage are all permitted uses in the M2 zone. The zoning bylaw amendment is required to increase the number of permitted shipping containers and adjust the setbacks to the shipping containers and the outdoor storage area in order to facilitate the proposed site plan application. The bylaw also recognizes the environmental area as identified in the application. Notice of the amendment was circulated by first-class prepaid mail to all assessed persons within 120 meters or 400 feet of the lands, to all required ministries and agencies, and to all the department directors. Notice of the meeting was posted on the township website, and the notice sign was posted on the front of the property. The notice complies with the requirements of the Planning Act. No comments have been received by the public. The Township Fire Department has no objections, provided the site is equipped with approved signage indicating the fire access route. The Township Public Works Department reviewed the submitted stormwater management plan and grading plan and the site entrance requirements and have no objections to the application. The Ministry of Transportation has entered into an agreement with the landowner to encroach on the standard 14-meter setback to Highway 115 until the improvements to Highway 115 are required. At this time, MTO has no objections to the rezoning applications. Hiawatha First Nation has no objection to the rezoning, provided that the wetland setbacks are respected. Comments of no objection were also received by Autonomy Conservation, Enbridge Gas, Canada Post, and the Kawartha District School Board. The proposed amendments are considered consistent with the application, with the applicable policies and regulations. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, sounds like everything's moving forward. It sounds like they're going to need to sort of adjust that moniker about death taxes and the need for storage. It seems like it's an unceasing need for people, it seems. So it's nice to see that this local business can expand to meet that need. Questions, members of council, with regards to the report? Councilor Burke.
Through the chair, yes, I think it's a very viable business in a spot that's not much use for anything else. But I do think it's quite a stretch to refer to those two little wet spots at east and west sides of the property as significant wetlands. Most of it's just drainage dishes that didn't get adjusted after the 115 highway was expanded to 4 lanes. Yes, they got water in them now because we had a typical Canadian winter and we had a wet spring, and they'll dry up every summer, the same as they always did. I just don't know how we get to that degree where we're referring to as a significant wetland.
Matt, you want to speak to that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Counselor. They're not referred to as significant wetlands, they're just referred to as wetlands. The wetlands were identified by the applicant back in 2025, I believe in the fall, and a suitable setback was assessed by them, and that's where we're at. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing nothing, we'll open the floor to anyone wishing to speak to the application. Anyone like to come forward? Just okay, so the process, I don't know if you got the rundown. I've got to push when I'm lit up, you can't go, so I will go off and then just state your name, address, and then we can hear your comments.
Good morning. That's very loud. My name is Amanda Timmermans. I'm with DM Wills. My personal address is 203 Summit Drive in Ennismore, Ontario. Sorry. So good afternoon, Mayor, members of council, staff, and some of the public. I am representing the applicant, or sorry, the owner of 1212 Moore Drive, Mr. Acosta. And Mr. Acosta sends his regrets. Today he wasn't able to attend because he's there running his business. So as the planner indicated, we are applying to rezone the subject property to a site-specific exception zone to recognize the existing conditions on the site and define those environmental features that we identified through our application. We do want to thank township staff and agencies for working with us, our engineers, then the property owner to find a solution for this. It's been an incredibly challenging site, and we're years into this solution, and I'm glad we're finally here and it's coming to fruition. So by way of background for council, when the owner purchased the property, he was under the impression that the business was permitted already on the site. However, no applications for site alteration were ever submitted to convert from the previous use to his use. So following some municipal enforcement actions, the owner retained us, DM Wills Engineering, just to provide the site plan for township approval and ensure that the site was properly designed to accommodate the stormwater issues at the site and reduce any impacts on the environment. After years, like I said, of design, redesign, lots of negotiations with MTO, and lots of collaboration with the township, as well as Orca, to protect those wetlands. We've finally come to this solution in front of you today for final consideration and approval. The subject of today's meeting is just the rezoning. There is a concurrent site plan application also processed by staff, where any further technical considerations can be addressed through that site plan control process and agreement. I do have the manager of land development engineering online, Chris Proctor, if any members of council or the public have any technical questions. Basically, since there's no comments from any agencies, we're finally in agreement on all the conditions on the site. We do concur with the township planner's recommendation to approve the zoning. And we do request that the site plan agreement process be expedited by staff so that we can move forward with the site plan, building permits, and the property owner can put all this behind him and operate his business the way he wants. So thanks for your time today.
Thank you for your comments. Any other questions from the members of the gallery? Seeing none. Okay, we will then move forward with consideration of the report. So the two recommendations similar to the last, that the council receive and consider all comments related to the zoning bylaw amendment application, and that the bylaw number 2026-20 be approved to rezone the subject lands from the rural employment M2 zone to the rural employment exception 11 M2 11 and the natural linkage zones. Moved by Councilor Burns, second by Deputy Mayor Huntley. All in favor? That is approved. Thank you very much for coming and speaking to the application. Next is, where am I going here? I believe it's 8:10. Matt, again, with regards to planning 2026-11, 2078 Davis Road, Ontario English Catholic Teachers Association zoning bylaw amendment. Matt. Sorry, it's Miss Ellis this time. Apologies, Karen. I was just on a roll with Matt today.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, members of the public, the third public meeting on our agenda today involves an existing lot of record at 2078 Davis Road in the North Monaghan area. The application pertains to an existing lot of record. It's described as part of Lot 1, Concession 11. If you want to flip to the key map, Mark, that would be helpful so everyone knows where we are. We're just north of the intersection of Stewart Line. And then, Mark, if you could flip to the site plan, that will give everyone a good idea of what we're talking about. So the application is required to permit the shipping container to be located on site, to permit the shipping container to be used as an accessory building for storage purposes, and to recognize the location of the storage container on site. If people remember, years ago, this site was a building supply sales. There was stone and decorative landscaping materials available. The previous owner of the property did apply to the township for approval of a site plan to redo the property to the current office building use. That site plan was processed during the COVID times. And we did come to an agreement and we agreed on the site plan and allowed the owner of the property to proceed with construction. It turns out that what got constructed did not conform to the approved site plan. In the interim, the property was then purchased by the current owners, and we identified a problem. So again, working with the current owners, we have come to an agreement on revisions to the site plan that have been completed, just not formally yet. But we did identify with all of the changes on site that a rezoning is required to permit the existing shipping container to remain on site and to permit it to remain on site in the location where it currently is located. Right now, standard wise in the township zoning bylaw, shipping containers are not permitted in a commercial zone. So that's why the rezoning is required. With the application, the zoning will change it from the standard commercial, Hamlet commercial to an exception zone, just to deal with the shipping container. The office building use is a permitted use as standard wise. There is some ongoing work required on site to address the non-compliance issues. The existing owners of the site have been very helpful and have done what has been asked for by the township in terms of making things right. And by making things right, that means including all of the infrastructure on their own property. So right now there is a little bit of an issue with some encroachment onto the adjacent property to the north. The requirements to get the infrastructure onto the subject property are in process. And I believe that things are going relatively smoothly. Having said that, the rezoning is required. We did circulate in compliance with the Planning Act. We provided notice to all assessed persons within 120 meters of the property, to all required ministries and agencies, and all township departments. At the time of writing of the report, township departments had no objection to the application. The Ministry of Transportation did advise us that they require 6 weeks to respond. So given that the situation exists and as it does, and it's been existing like this for a number of years, we've decided to recommend to you that you approve the bylaw, notwithstanding the fact that we don't have their comments. Autonomy Conservation has confirmed to the township that the application is consistent with Chapter 5 of the PPS, referencing natural hazards. The proposed development is not anticipated to create new or aggravate existing hazards. Permits from the authority are not required, and the subject property is not in a vulnerable area, and source water protection policies do not apply. The development is not subject to review by the Risk Management Office, and a restricted land use notice is not required. Enbridge, Nexicom, Bell Canada, Canada Post, Peterborough County Public Works and Planning Departments, and Hiawatha First Nation have no comment. So based on the information that we've had to date, the recommendation to council is that you approve the bylaw. Having said that, just this morning, we did receive written comments from an adjacent property. So I will just give you the highlights of what we received this morning. So they are writing to oppose the zoning bylaw amendment. Their concerns are not with the proposed shipping container itself, but with the applicant's ongoing property boundary and compliance issues, which remain unresolved despite being raised previously. A legal survey of our property confirms that certain improvements associated with this property extend onto our lands. and they identify those specific items, and we are aware of those, and the new site plan has been adjusted to revise everything, and work is required, construction work is required. These issues were brought to the property owner's attention over a year ago, and despite ample notice, no corrective action has been taken. Given these unresolved encroachment and compliance matters, I have serious concerns with granting additional site-specific zoning relief that would further reduce setback requirements on this property. In my view, council should not consider additional zoning exceptions until existing site compliance, property boundary matters, and applicable septic setbacks have been reviewed and resolved by the appropriate township departments and/or relevant authorities. At a minimum, I respectfully request that council defer consideration of this application pending confirmation of: 1, compliance of all existing site works with approved plans and zoning requirements; 2, resolution of known property encroachments; and 3, confirmation that the septic system complies with all applicable setback requirements. Please include this correspondence as part of the public record and consider this a request for notice of council's decision regarding this application. So having said all of that, the recommendation before you today is still that you approve the zoning bylaw amendment, and we will continue through the Township Planning Department and Public Works, Building Department, to ensure that the site is brought into compliance with the tentatively accepted site plan. So as I've indicated, work is required to bring to adjust the septic system. There's a retaining wall, parking requirements, but we are well on our way to resolving the issues.
Thanks, Karen. And so obviously just receiving that this morning, so I think you spoke to it a little bit, but I'm going to just ask for a bit more clarification. So I can understand the request for a deferral because, maybe you can speak to the process about, it sounds from staff's perspective that there's full intention for all of those corrections and encroachment issues to be resolved through the site plan that's being worked on and through the future efforts with the proponent. That isn't done today. But what we're considering today is the zoning accommodation for it. So do you believe there's issues or conflict with approving the zoning, given the fact that the encroachment issues that are highlighted in the individual's comments haven't been addressed yet? Or, it sounds as though there's a level of surety from staff that, there is a plan in place to make all of those encroachment issues resolved. But maybe you can provide a bit more clarity on those comments.
To you, Mayor Graham and members of council, I'm happy to provide clarity. So we did have an approved site plan. What got built was not in compliance with that site plan. So then it becomes an enforcement issue. So we have met with the current owner and bylaw enforcement. The building department has also been involved in terms of building permits and the septic approvals, and obviously the planning department in terms of the approved site plan and the requirements under the current zoning bylaw. I would say we have had excellent cooperation from the current owners. We now have a site plan in our hand that has been developed by the current owners that does address all of our requirements in terms of zoning bylaw regulations, in terms of septic permit requirements, etc. I can't recommend to the CAO that she approve that site plan, which includes the shipping container, until we have the zoning in place to recognize that. So there is a desire by the current owners to bring themselves into compliance. They have prepared the revised site plan that it does address all of our requirements. As I've indicated, there is an issue with things with encroachment onto the property to the north. But to the best of my knowledge, in ongoing discussions with the current owners, that there is both legal teams from both property owners are in touch and are discussing the path to resolution, and that has been going on for many, many months. And it's my understanding that it will continue. So I fully believe that that the current owners are working diligently to make the adjustments they need to make to bring themselves into compliance.
Thanks, Ms. Ellis. Okay, members of council, questions with regards to the report? Deputy Mayor?
Through you, Chair, I think you kind of answered my question. I guess it would be, a nice little surprise when you buy the property to find out that there's stuff you have to remediate. But it sounds like the remediation has fallen to bylaw enforcement. So there is still, methodologies and issue orders or whatever to force them into compliance. So it's not just going to be, if we issue this, everything goes quiet. So there is always going to be some sort of active activity to inform or to bring them to conformity. Correct?
Through you, Mayor Graham, to Deputy Mayor Huntley and members of council. That is correct. So this is how we've got to this point, because we did have an approved site plan at the time, and things did not get built in accordance with that approved site plan. So then bylaw enforcement got involved, and then that enforcement involved, as always, trying to work with people to bring them into compliance. And so we brought the appropriate team members in, the current owners. Thank goodness were receptive to working with us and getting it resolved. So if in fact you issue an approval today for the zoning, the site plan gets approved by the township and things don't get resolved, then bylaw enforcement, we go back and start the process again.
Follow up?
So through you, Chair, then to Ms. Ellis, I guess the question then is if we don't approve this today, then we've kind of thrown a stick into the cog of this thing and trying to get to the resolution in the end, it sounds like.
Through you, Mayor Graham, to Deputy Mayor Huntley, members of council. If we don't approve the zoning bylaw amendment today, it just delays staff's recommendation to approve the site plan. So things will stay as they are today until the property issues get resolved. I feel that if we approve the zoning bylaw, permit the shipping container if you see fit. If you don't, that's fine. We'll erase it from the site plan. But if it gets approved, we can approve the site plan. Everybody knows what we're working toward. The current owner then has the plan. Yes, this is what we're doing. We know what we're doing. Bylaw enforcement can run the periodic checks. We can stay in touch. And we all are pulling in the same direction. If you choose not to make a decision today, but defer a decision, that's okay. It just defers things or however long the property issues take to get resolved.
Councilor Nacho.
Thank you, through you, Chair. So just so we're clear then, so we have to approve this zoning amendment for them to become compliant. They could not just become compliant and then we can I'm struggling to understand why it is that this needs to happen where they hadn't yet, and I've had over a year to do so. So if you can just explain it again, maybe.
Through you, Mayor Graham, to members of council and Councillor Natchoff. So the zoning bylaw amendment before you today is required only to permit the existing shipping container in the location it is today. If they didn't want the shipping container and wanted to remove it, we wouldn't need a rezoning. Okay, but they've decided that they need it for storage purposes. And because we don't permit them as of right, they need the bylaw to permit a shipping container on site. And because it's located too close to the rear property line, they need an exception to recognize that less than required setback.
So now I have to ask for a clarification. So I think we're making progress though. So thank you, Ms. Ellis. So it doesn't sound from my hearing of the comments that there's a lot of concerns with regards to the container itself. It's more of some of the infrastructure, septic, et cetera. But is that correct? Maybe I'll start in small bits instead of long-winded soliloquies. Can you answer that question?
To you, Mayor Graham and members of council. The shipping container has been on site for 10 years, a long time. To the best of my knowledge, and Kyle's not giving me any look. So we have never had a complaint about that shipping container. The problem arises when we're doing the site plan approval and staff are going to make a recommendation to the CAO to approve that site plan. Everything has to be in compliance. So the fact that the owners want to keep the shipping container, we have to give them permission to have that on site at that location.
So thank you for that. And so just building. So just when we're talking about the encroachment, it sounds as though the container has an element of its location that is encroaching. No, it does not. Okay, that helps very much clarify that. I have no further questions. Thank you, Ms. Ellis. Anyone else have questions with regards to the application? Seeing none, we'll go open members of the public. Anyone wishing to speak to the application, come forward. Just state your name and I'll turn mine off right now.
Bart Scollard, I am the local unit president of the Ontario English Catholic Teachers Association. I am not the owner of the property. Our provincial association is. It's unique ownership base, but we get all the benefits of that. So we purchased the property, I believe, in 2021 or 2022 during the pandemic, and then built the existing structure there through the previous owner. And a little over a year ago, we found out that there was a property boundary issue. We were served notice through our neighbor's lawyer, and then we, of course, were in contact with legal counsel right away. So unfortunately, as much as I would like this be remedied tomorrow, it has been a long process. The township people have been wonderful with helping guide me through this process in terms of what we need to do to make sure that we do everything we need to do to be in compliance with the township. But of course, lawyers back and forth. We're hoping to get something done soon. I actually have a meeting with our legal counsel this Friday and a Zoom meeting with our chief financial officer of our provincial association. So hopefully you can understand that our shipping container is really just a storage container. So as a union, we require to keep documents for a certain amount of time. So some of them as long as 100 years. Our association has been around since 1944, so we're getting close to 100 years, but unfortunately we have a legal requirement to keep things. So that storage container really just contains older documents and things like that. So nothing untoward or anything like that. So, and it's just to help us with space in our building as well.
And just with regards to the comments received, and just maybe I'll ask you, just not to put you on the spot, obviously, but just there's full intention for remediation with regards to the encroachment issues. That seems like a process that, obviously legal's involved, so it's going to take some time, but that's the intention moving forward. Just to hear it from a representative of the proponent would, I think, be helpful.
Yes, that's our full intention, that we come to an agreement, actually probably a legally binding agreement that we both agree where the property boundary is, and to make sure we're also in compliance with all the local bylaws.
Excellent. Thanks for those comments. Anyone else wishing to make a comment? Seeing none. Okay, the two recommendations similar as the previous reports, that council receive and consider any public comments received regarding the application, and that bylaw number 2026-22 be approved to rezone the property from Hamlet Commercial C2 zone to Hamlet Commercial Exception 12 C2 12 zone. Mover and a seconder, moved by Councillor Edgerton, seconded by Councillor Natchop. All in favor? That is approved. Need a resolution to close the public meeting. Moved by Councillor Byrne, seconded by Deputy Mayor Huntley. All in favor? That is approved. Thanks everyone for coming today with regards to the public meetings. I appreciate all your comments and best of luck with the developments. Perfect. Next item on the agenda is the minutes of the regular meeting held April 20th, 2026. Can I get a mover and a seconder for those minutes if there are no amendments? Moved by Deputy Mayor Huntley, seconded by Councillor Byrne. All in favor? That is approved. Next, or approved as presented, sorry. Next, reports 10.1 ECD Community Improvement Grant Program. Ms. Aya.
Thank you, Mayor. The report before council is ECD 2026-04. 2026 Community Improvement Grant Program recipients, the second intake. With the recommendation that council accept the recommended Community Improvement Plan grant recipients for 779 Zion Line, which is Fourth Line Theater, and 4 Union Street, which is Sage and Soul Collective, totaling $4,962 identified in the 2026 capital budget.
Thank you, Ms. Aya. Great to see some local businesses taking advantage of the program and getting the funding out the door, as we're always intending it to be. Questions with regards to the with the report? If not, the recommendation is that council accept the community improvement grant recipients for 779 Zion Line, Fourth Line Theater, and 4 Union Street Stage and Soul Collective, totaling $4,962 identified in the 2026 capital budget. Moved by Deputy Mayor Huntley, seconded by Councillor Natchop. All in favor? That is approved. Next item on the agenda is Report Public Works Municipal Battery Collection. Chris Manduka is here today.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you and to council today, we have Report Public Works 2026-08 Municipal Battery Collection. The following recommendations are put forth to council. First, that council receive Public Works Report 2026-08 as information. And 2, that council approve the used consumer type portable battery recycling agreement with Call to Recycle Canada Inc. for transporting and recycling consumer battery services from collection locations within the township through authorization of bylaw number 2026-23. And finally, third recommendation being that council direct all revenue from this program to the environmental services budget to offset costs for other divertible waste programs.
Thanks, Chris. So this is an interesting program. Did this come to us from, has it been in place in any municipalities in the county already or previously? And just maybe just provide some clarity as to how we came to this arrangement that's being proposed?
Not a problem. So historically, we've provided household battery collection services at our transfer station. We received notice that our current haulers are no longer providing it as a free service. So for staff to look outside for other groups to continue the program. And we received word from through Selwyn that they had used Call to Recycle. So we approached that company. And it seems like a very good option for us. It allows us to continue our current program at the transfer station and allows us to expand the program to other municipal locations. Also, we'd be getting paid this time, which is nice. But yeah, Selwyn has it, I believe, at their library locations, their municipal office, their community center. And the city of Peterborough also uses Call to Recycle. You might see their green bins at their facilities. Also, the county of Peterborough uses them for their municipal hazardous waste event days, which would also kind of be available to us through coordination with Call to Recycle. So be able to expand not only our intake programs, but also perhaps gives us the opportunity to expand to larger municipal events.
Yeah, it's nice to actually potentially receive some of the revenue for the recycling and nice to have a few more locations too, to make it a little more accessible for the public. That sounds great. And nice work by staff to find a secondary provider now that that other opportunity is no longer available as well. Questions, members of council, Councilor Byrne.
Through the chair to Chris, what do you see as revenue stream and cost, and where are they going? Is there the potential for this expense to get larger than the recoup on the recycled material?
Through Mayor to Councilor Byrne. So as of right now, there's zero cost for this program. And it's anticipated there would also be zero cost to continue this program. In fact, we get revenue for participating in the program. So it'd be a net gain. We roughly get 300 to 500 kilograms of household battery material through the transfer station as the program stands. So we'd probably only see a couple $100 based on this yearly program, but that would help to perhaps if we have to expand the program, get a barrel or something like that at the transfer station, depending on what we do or do not get approved through Call to Recycle. Such is the case at Selwyn. They do have to maintain a barrel program, so they have to outsource those barrels, but that's not anticipated in our situation.
Great. Councilor Nacho.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you, Chris. It's great. One suggestion or recommendation I might make is if maybe yourself or someone from the Public Works Department wants to reach out to Home Hardware in Millbrook, they up till a short period of time were collecting household batteries for people, and then they had stopped that program. And then so if you can, maybe we can put a poster up there or something. Then I think that like they get a lot of people coming in, and that would just be a little bit more useful, that people are directed as to where they could go to drop their stuff off. But good job. Thanks.
Yeah, we can probably share it with the BIA as well, just so they're aware of the program and the locations they mentioned. That's a good suggestion. Staff can take that away. Seeing no other questions, the three recommendations in the report, I think we can move them all together. It's fairly straightforward. They're interrelated. Can I get a mover and a seconder for those recommendations? Moved by Councilor Natchoff, seconded by Councilor Byrne. All in favor? It is approved. Next is council committee verbal reports. Any verbal reports? Councilor Natchoff.
Thank you, through you, Chair. We had on Saturday our Millbrook Valley Trails Workday. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Huntley, for showing up as well to pitch in. The trails are looking all the volunteers. I'd like to thank all of them as well, the karate group and the people in the community. The trails are looking really nice. Thank you very much, Chris Allison and the Parks and Rec Department, for coordinating with us for the material drop-offs and mulch and all of the stuff. Ms. Hurley for making a couple of his staff available as well to help out. It was a great day. We got a tiny bit of snow for about 5 minutes, which was another winter doesn't want to end, but yeah, just happy that the trails are open and everyone are able to enjoy them. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for that. And thanks for both of you for joining. I was sorry to miss it this weekend, but I was suffering through a cold. That snow was not going to help recover. Any other verbal updates? If not, I've got a couple. Well, wanted to say thank you to Community Care for inviting me to speak and bring greetings from the township for their lunch that was on April 21st. Obviously, Community Care does such great work, and every year I've been able to go to the lunch and just express our appreciation on behalf of the township for all the work the volunteers do, whether it's bringing groceries, making wellness calls and things of that nature. There's just it's a great room to be in with a lot of people that do so much that means a lot to our community. So, and I want to especially shout out, there was a few special recognitions for years of service. One most notably Karen Morton, who's our fearless leader when it comes to our local coordinator. She's been serving the community for 15 years in this position, and she's the one that really facilitates all the great work that the program does, from volunteering and scheduling, et cetera. So special congratulations to Karen for that anniversary. And they also recognize Chris Shearer, who's a local resident who does a fundraising golf tournament every year and has been doing it for quite some time and really helping the fiscal position of Community Care. So wanted to shout out those two individuals especially, but thanks to all the volunteers for all the great work they do in the community. And for inviting me to speak on behalf of the township. The only other update I have, well, I have two, but the one is subsequent to the next item on the agenda. But with regards to the medical board, we also had a meeting. We've met with all of the physicians and the Dr. Lee, the dentist at the medical center. Had a great conversation about the facility, and everyone's, we're keeping management and everything up to snuff and making a few improvements and talking about sort of long-term plans with all the tenants. And great conversation, and everything's going quite well and everyone's quite happy. So that's good. And continue on the business as usual, and obviously expressing our appreciation for the service they all provide from a health services standpoint. And I'll save the last for the next item, but can we get a mover and a seconder for those verbal reports? Moved by Councilor Burns, seconded by Councilor Natchow. All in favor? Those are approved. There is no general business. There is no correspondence for information, but we do have an item for correspondence for action. So this came up from at the more recent City of Peterborough Police Services Board meeting. There's been a number of changes that the province has imposed sort of carte blanche on police services, whether it's regards to requiring certain training for certain officers or certain officers to have said training. And what we're finding, and we've talked about this for a few different iterations at the police board, is that first of all, there's no offset funding for the disruption of service, but there's also sort of a disproportionate impact on small to medium-sized police services. That the City of Peterborough Police Service is one of those small to medium-sized providers. So they're being treated the same as all of the large urban police services. And it's quite a significant imposition when it comes to things like certification, where they can be trained, the requirements. And some of the training is only available at one location, and it takes 2 to 3 weeks in person, which is, when you're taking multiple officers out of circulation or out of service for that amount of training in a small service, it makes a huge difference. And there's a tremendous cost associated with it. And all of this was imposed sort of overnight without significant consultation. So in the last meeting, there was a few letters of support that a motion that I don't think was circulated to our township or Selwyn, who the City of Peterborough has their police service has contracts with. But there was a few letters of support for this motion that came from the City of Peterborough. And I thought it was worthwhile for us to consider offering a letter of support as well. A lot of it just speaks to sort of at a high level the implications of some of these changes from a legislative standpoint on smaller police boards, a significant cost increase, but also a disruption in the ability for those police services to provide services in their township. So similar as the province has taken action for the cost increases for OPP for those municipalities receiving it, for those that aren't, there's a lot of cost implications with some of the updated legislation that's recently come into effect that people that receive local police service from organizations outside the OPP are having to incur. So all this recommendation or all the motion from the city is doing is just saying, be advised of this disruption in service and the implications on smaller police services, and try to make every effort to make some offset funding available or accommodations available for the legislation that they're now governed by. But happy to speak to any questions with regards to the motion. Councilor Brett.
Through the chair. So if I understood you just now, would there be a difference in the impact if we were still being governed by the OPP rather than being with the city police?
Not really, because there's cost associated. The OPP is under the same legislation. It's just who's providing it and the implications therein. So, I mean, the OPP, the restrictions were, there was they tried to cap it at about, I think 11 or 12% increase for smaller municipalities. That was action that the province took because the cost increases with the subsequent legislation were higher than that, or causing contractual, arrangements to go up in excess of 12%, which was just not feasible for municipal budgets, and also done at a time that wasn't conducive or scheduled with municipalities able to budget for that level of an increase. There's always an often forgotten reality that we approve budgets in February and March and not on the calendar year. And there's not an ability to redo the taxes when budget's approved. So how it would be quantified would probably be different, but there'd still be a cost associated with having to meet the legislative requirements. Like I said, there's been no offset adjustments for non-OPP police services. So for those communities that have their own police service or receive service from an urban police center, there's been no offset or no exceptions made. And so this is kind of just highlighting that to say that, for a lot of these good police services locally providing service, there's a real implication for some of this disruptive legislation that was really made, and some would say heavy-handed and quickly, without understanding those implications on smaller police services. So we're highlighting that reality and asking if there's any considerations. I would think there's been discussions with the chief at the board meetings about even extensions to say, don't make us be in compliance right away, because we need some time to be able to schedule and get this sort of accommodations and trainings incorporated into our police service. We don't have enough officers just to, backfill everything all the time and have all of this training completed in a reasonable way. So hopefully that provides some clarity on that. Deputy Mayor?
Through you, Chair, I agree with supporting the letter and all that, but I know you've heard my rants before about these letters that we write in saying it's increased cost, but with never quantifying it, right? And that it's kind of bugaboo of mine, right? Like, how much has it increased? What percent of a budget? Like any kind of quantitative value, I think, is so much more valuable than just saying it increased cost. Because I'm pretty sure when they initiated this, they knew it would increase cost, right? But somebody's got to give them the feedback on what that cost actually is, and what that implementation really is. So I'll support your letter 100%. Obviously we don't have the insight to see what that cost effect is, just my own personal rant. I will provide time and time again, every time these things come across.
Yeah, and like you said, we don't have the insight or the controls to really make those quantifications. That's why we're, taking what the city's asked for letters of support for, even though they didn't ask us for it directly, saying, you provide it, currently you guys provide us with this service, and we understand that it's a disruptor for sure. And it's a complicated thing when you think about, okay, well, I can tell you how much the training costs, and I can tell you how much the accommodation costs to sit through the training for the 2 weeks or 3 weeks, depending on the course. So that's a cost, but the cost of having to gap fill that position then adds to it. It becomes a little bit ambiguous. And like you said, we couldn't do that math anyways. But I'll make the suggestion next time I'm with members of the city council to say, maybe add some more fiduciary information in your advocacy letters. I can happily do that. Any questions with regards to the motion? If not, we'll take a mover and a seconder with regards to that request for sustainable funding for policing costs. Moved by Deputy Mayor Huntley, seconded by Councillor Natchoff. All in favor? That is approved. Thank you, members of council. The bylaws. And here we go again, that the bylaw number 2026-20 zoning bylaw amendment 1212 Moore Drive ZBA-01-24 and bylaw number 2026-21 zoning bylaw amendment 488 Ava Crescent ZBA-01-26 and bylaw number 2026-22 zoning bylaw amendment 2078 Davis Road ZBA-02-26 and bylaw number 2026-23 being a bylaw to execute the user consumer type portable battery recycling agreement between the township of Cabmonaghan and Call to Recycle Canada for the providing and handling of user consumer type portable batteries collected within the township to Call to Recycle, to be read a first, second, third time and passed this 4th day of May, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the corporate seal attached there too. Moved by Deputy Mayor Huntley, seconded by Councillor Natchoff. All in favor? Those bylaws are approved. There is no unfinished business. There is no notices of motion. Confirming bylaw that bylaw number 2026-24 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the meeting held May 4, 2026 be read a first, second, third time and passed this 4th day of May, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the corporate seal attached there too. Moved by Councillor Byrne, seconded by Councillor Edgerton. All in favor? That is approved. Lastly, motion to adjourn today's meeting. Moved by Counselor Natchoff, seconded by Counselor Edgerton. All in favor? That is approved. There are a number of upcoming events. The next regular council meeting is Tuesday, May 19th at 1 p.m. in the chamber. The Cap Monaghan Public Library Board meets on Tuesday, May 19th at 7 p.m. The Millbrook Valley Trails Advisory Committee meets on Monday, May 25th at 4 p.m. The subsequent regular council meeting is June 1st, and then our last meeting before the summer break is June 18th at 1 p.m. in the chambers. Thank you, and we'll see you in the township. Take care.